You are listening to Healing with Haley, episode 30, Guiding Little Hands, a journey in a pediatric OT. Welcome to the podcast where it's all about healing, self-improvement, our brains, and living our dream lives. My name is Haley Kirk, and I'm a life coach, mom, and entrepreneur here to show you how to be the hero of your story. Welcome to the podcast, you guys. I have an amazing guest, my lovely friend, Stacey, and she is a pediatric and occupational therapist. I was like, what is the abbreviation for OT? And the reason I'm bringing her on, not only because she's a stellar human being and my amazing friend, but I have learned so much from her that I wouldn't have known this field or career existed without Stacey. Like we were just talking about it earlier on before the podcast that one of the first times she showed me like what she does, we were at a dance event like we normally are and how we met. And she was pointing out to me some of our friends that were like eating on the side while other people were dancing. And I was just like, she was like showing me all this, like, see that motion of how they're eating and that it should be this way. And I was like, oh my goodness, that is so fascinating. And you even told me once, you were like, yeah, you would want to, if you're a mouth breather, you want to put your tongue on like the roof of your mouth to help. And that's like a calming mechanism. And I was like,
Yeah.
I was just blown away by that. And so I wanted to bring you on and just share your expertise because I have a lot of mom friends that I think would really thrive with the information that you have given me already. And just share your experience. So to get started, we should probably introduce like how we know each other. We met through dancing and and then we also like journeyed into like doing a team together, like what we're called the Stiletto Sirens, which was so fun. And it was so fun because Stacey was so awesome with Israel, my son, at practice. Like she would always be using her skills and her tools to help him while I was practicing and helping him with communication and behavior, like kind of guiding behavior. And I loved it so much. So just dive in for me. What got you into this whole field of pediatrics and OT, and like where did the passion start?
So it was really like happen chance or whatever that word is.
I
But
love
I
it.
was actually at Mount Washington Pediatric Hospital as a nutrition assistant because my undergraduate degree is in nutrition and I needed clinical experience. And I saw that for the first time. Like I saw OT, like I have this like vivid memory of this little boy riding a bicycle and he had what's called like deep vein thrombosis, which causes a lot of pain in the lower extremities. And he got through it however they did. I was only involved in like whatever he ate. And he came back in and he was like, Miss Stacy, look at my hair. Like it wasn't about anything else, but he had this like cool lightning bolt in his hair. And it was just really cool to see like the kids like biking around and just like really happy doing like normal kid things, even though they were in a hospital. And so my uncle's partner is a physical therapist, and we kind of chatted about it. And he was like, you could do hippotherapy, which I had never heard of. And so, hippotherapy is using the horse as a modality. And so, you can do PT, you can do OT, you can do speech. There's horse therapy on the ground. And so, it just really utilizes that, like, that being of the horse into the practice. And so I took the journey and the leap while I was at Mount Washington and applied to OT school. And they're like, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And so I quit my job, did X, Y, and Z. And I ended up getting waitlisted, which I was like, you know what? I did this all on a whim, like, no big deal. And so I ended up getting in. And that's kind of where my journey began. I went to Towson. So it was a small program. We only have 40 people. And it was weird going back to school. I had taken like 2 years off and I was never a really good student. I was trying to like juggle so many different things. And my journey was really different than a lot of other OT students. I ended up getting a concussion during my first field work. And it were right before my first field work. And so it actually really impacted me more than I thought. And so I ended up having post concussion syndrome, and I ended up failing my first internship, which is like, for a type A person, is like the end of the world. And so for me, it was a blessing in disguise because I got to take that pause. Um, and I was given the opportunity to do a pediatric rotation at the Institute for Wellbeing in Towson. And I got to help build a program and do the manual. And that's when I like really fell in love with peds. I never in my life ever thought I was going to work with kids. And because I know myself, like, well, I still am, like, I'm a hothead, and like I struggle with my tone and my reaction size. And so I was like, I do not fit well with children. And so, but there I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I feel so drawn to this. I was like, working with adults, like, I feel so awkward. I'm like, I don't know what to talk to them about. And with kids, it's just so light and airy and less serious. Um, and so I did the rotation at IWB, and then I went to Hanover Hospital, I think. And then when I finished, I was behind my whole class because I had failed. And we had to sit for our board. So I did that. And when I finished, my initial plan was like to just get a job at a teaching hospital. Well, that was a bad idea. I failed miserably. I didn't fail, but like it just was a really bad fit. It was too high stress. I was making mistakes because I was so anxious and like not realizing. I mean, I don't think I realized how anxious of a person I was until I was in my like early 30s. And so my parents were like, you loved pediatrics, like take the leap. If you need to get a PRN job, like if there's an opportunity, like take that. And so that's what I did. I got offered a PRN job in
What's a
Columbia,
PRN job?
Maryland, work as needed. So it's like I got hired to treat when there was children, um,
Oh, okay.
and working towards like a full caseload. So I went and I started there, and I was able to work up to full time. And then I moved from that practice to the practice in Towson, which I was there. So I was at my first practice for 4 years, and then my second practice for 3.5. And then I just made the switch to early intervention. And so I've learned a ton in early intervention, and it's just been really eye-opening. I felt like a disconnect in the clinic, because I wasn't able to see what was going on at home, and I was like giving them all these ideas, and I'm like, but I need to be there because there could be something that like I'm not understanding, and understanding like what that struggle is. And I feel really grateful because unfortunately during COVID we had to go virtual, and I felt like I really thrived in virtual because I got to see the home and I got to do feeding therapy in the home, and I was like so eye-opening. And so me and my coworkers started like the teletherapy program at my clinic, and it went well. I mean, I was seeing 30 kids a week. And
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it was not exhausting. Like it was just like so fulfilling because the kids had buy-in, the parents had buy-in, like we had a plan for every session. And so I was like, this is how therapy should be. It should be in the home. And so when I changed my new practice, it was more holistic. And that's what I was looking for. And so I grew and I really learned a lot about myself in my last practice. And I think I like found my niche of like just supporting the family. And I'm a little bit of a different occupational therapist where like I do observe, but I'm really hands-on with my kids. Like you've seen it at at dance practice. Like I am rough and tumble, and if the kids need it. But I've learned a lot about like respecting that no, and coming from like I came from like a behavioral background, and I didn't understand it, and I felt so much more empowered for the children to be able to respect that no and wait and like kind of step back and be like, well, why? Like, why is it uncomfortable for your body? And really diving into those kind of things and kind of guiding me towards this community-based service.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. Thanks for breaking that down. So I love this respecting no thing. Can you dive into that and like what should parents be learning from what this like respecting no idea is?
I mean, I feel like every family is different, but I think we're in this new frame of mind where we want our children to have autonomy, yes, but there's a reason that they're saying no. And like finding out that why is so important. And so they can
Any
say
kid,
no.
any kid that says no, we want to find out why they're saying
Yeah.
no.
So,
Oh,
like,
I
for
love that.
example, I started early intervention in Baltimore City. And so I was observing, and this little boy was like fighting to take his shoes and socks off. And they just kept saying, like, put your shoes and socks on, put your shoes and socks on. And for me, in that moment, I wouldn't have continued. I would have been like, oh, it looks like you don't want to wear your socks and shoes. And he's non speaking. So that's like a battle in itself. And
Mhm.
so we can respect that no, but if it's a part of the daily plan, like I found out later, like mom doesn't care if he wears shoes. You can say, like, I hear you and I know you don't want to wear your shoes. Our plan is to wear our shoes now. We can take them off later. And so it's like it it validates how they're feeling. It's respecting how they're feeling, but also setting that boundary of like, I hear you, but this is what we need to do. Or we can put our socks on and carry our shoes, like giving them that choice, giving them that power. Because I feel like kids are not stuck, but like they're kids, they have zero control. And that's where this newer diagnosis of PDA comes from. And it's I always forget the name, pervasive defiance, something like that. It's like a defiance disorder, basically. Um, and I apologize for not remembering how to say it.
Oh, it's okay.
But it comes from that like lack of control, that lack of trust, and it's just they need to feel safe. And it goes back to that sensory need, like that really like low level, like we are sensory beings. What does your sensory system need in order to be at optimal functioning?
Oh, I learned so much from you every time I talk to you about this. This is so cool. So, okay, if I'm hearing what you're saying, so you had this experience with this kid and he was not wanting to put his socks and shoes on. Other OTs or people working with
No,
him
yeah, it
were
was other
saying,
people, not OTs.
oh, not OTs. They were
Mhm.
like, just put your like kind of just repeating the request.
Yeah,
But you were like through your OT experience, you were like, hey, why is he saying no?
yeah.
And it's like, and then how did you, so you said he was non-speaking, so how did you communicate with him and validate those feelings?
So I wasn't with him. Like I was an observer in this
Oh, okay, okay.
opportunity, but in those moments, like I have, so on my iPad, I have communication devices. I have
Ooh, tell me
low
about
tech.
those really quick. What are those?
So there are a ton of communication apps basically that are available for download. It's really beneficial to have like a speech pathologist or OT that's certified in assistive technology kind of guide you through like the what's and whys to determine what would be best.
What are some of
Um,
your favorites?
uh, I mean, the ones I've used the most are Lamp and Touch Chat. And there was another one that I was exploring when I left my last clinic, and I can't remember for the life of me what it's called.
Yeah.
But there are a ton out there, and it just gives this voice to the children. And it's not, and a lot of parents are like a little offstandish about using a device because they're like, well, if they're speaking through the device, they're not going to talk, they're not going to use their words. And it's like, no, if you think about how often speaking children hear words repeated, the non-speaking children don't have this opportunity. So instead of using mouth words, they're going to use this device so they can hear it and hear it and hear it. And that's where you hear that like babbling that your child might have skipped that step. It's like it may be annoying because it's like what, why, who, like whatever pictures are on the screen, it's going to talk to you. But they my computer might die. Can I pause and go
Okay.
get my charger?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's totally fine. Totally
Sorry.
fine. Go for it. No, no worries.
I thought it was charging all day. Um, where's the thing? Okay. Um, so there's one that's called Cough Drop that you can use on like your phone and your tablet. Um, some of them have like cloud backup services, but it's just that like that need for kids to be able to hear those words over and over again. That's why those like electronic books are so powerful. And those are the words that you hear your kids say first, right? Those animal names, or those nouns, or those words that are like constantly repeated when they play those books. And then there's, I don't have my binder, low tech. So low tech is basically a piece of paper that the child can like point to. Um, and it's for kids that like don't do well with screens, or families that aren't into screens. It just gives them another option. And I personally have like screenshotted the lamp board or the touch chat board, but there's a ton of like different kinds of low tech versions of these boards. Now there's like an older school or older frame of thought called picture exchange system, and that's kind of like not ideal anymore because the thought is you have to like give something to someone in order to make a request or communicate, whereas like there shouldn't have to be eye contact to communicate. There shouldn't have to be like a give and take in communication, because that's not how it naturally is. And that's why I think that device is so powerful, because like that can be their voice until they have access to their own language. um, but I found it really powerful, and I've brought it to a lot of my sessions in early intervention, and it's been like really eye-opening for the parents, and they've been like um a little wary, and rightfully so. It's new, it's different, they have their worries about it, but it works, it really does. And
Well,
I
and it
had
makes
this,
sense, right? Because it's like it's giving them like these kids that can't speak and they're having a hard time expressing themselves or communicating needs. And it's like it seems like it's bridging the gap so that there's like this emotional kind of like connection
it
to
decreases
first.
frustration so much.
Yeah, I feel like if kids can feel a little empowered, like can feel a little like they have a way to communicate, I feel like that would want them to try to communicate better.
Yeah. And so like on my device, like it's not set up really well. I had like a fantastic screen on my iPad for my last job, and I didn't transfer it. And so like right now I have like songs, so like Happy and You Know It or Wheels on the Bus. And I have one little kid who I pull it up, and like he asks for it, and then he'll switch to a different song. And so like this week I sequenced like more monkeys or more Wheels on the Bus, and it was so cool because he was like yes, and I was like, we didn't even talk about using the yes button, but he swiped over and like hit that yes button. I was like, holy cow.
Yeah, that's so cool.
And you
And
could just
it's
see
fun
him
because
like,
like at least for me, like so my son, he's 2 years old and he isn't meeting like the CDC's requirement for like 50 words speaking, like
yeah,
speaking 50 words. He speaks probably about like 4 or 5 words. And I know he understands. I
yeah,
know he understands when I'm speaking to him, but I think it'd be so cool to like tangibly see, oh, he understands what yes and no means. Like that would be really cool. It's like kind of I feel like tangible for parents to see like, oh, like they actually can put two and two
yeah.
together.
Well, and it's like that simple, like, yes, no, like, do you want chocolate milk or do you want orange juice? And it's like, do you want chocolate milk? Yes or no. Do you like this? Yes or no. And like, they do have an opinion, but they don't get to voice it. And it's interesting because like a lot of the communities now are looking at it more of like, instead of non-speaking, it's not using mouth words, so they're, instead of using their mouth words, they're using that device. And so there's a lot of nuances changing in the language, and like what's acceptable or what's more appropriate and what feels more empowering to them. And so it lies on this like neuroaffirming practice, like the brain is different. How does your brain work, and like what's going to make your brain feel the most successful?
Oh, this is so cool. So, okay, I want to, this is going to be like a therapy session for me. Um, I want to talk about this whole like the respecting the no thing and the like empowering kids, helping them feel like they have control and power and those power dynamics. So earlier today, Israel wanted, we were at the park and I usually give him like a countdown, right? So I'm like, and I'll put my hand like in his face or like close to his face, like, baby, 5 minutes. We gotta go home in 5 minutes. I'll try to like communicate as best I can. So he knows like time we gotta like start getting ready to go. And then he walks to the stroller. I didn't bring water, and I normally do. And so he like reaches for where the water normally is. And I said, "Oh, baby, like all gone. Like there's no more. Like there's no water." And he starts crying. And I thought that meant he wanted to go home. And we did need to go home anyway. And so it was such a this was probably his worst tantrum was today. And he was like crying. And so I was, just like consoling him and I was saying like it's okay to cry, like please cry, cry. Like, are you sad we're leaving? I know it's sad to go home. And then I was giving him two options. So I was like, you can either push the cart, like you can push your cart, or you can go in the stroller. And for whatever reason, he hates the stroller now. And so he was like, okay, push the cart. But then he didn't want to push the cart towards the house. And so I was like, hey, we got to push the, he knows, and he knows. And so he was just trying all these different things, but having meltdowns. And I would kind of like get this far in a distance and then help calm down, console the emotions. So I don't know what I could have done better, but I kept reaffirming the emotion, giving him the two options, and he normally picks an option, but he wasn't picking one. And so I was like, I don't know what to
I
do.
can tell you
So
exactly what it is.
tell
So
me.
he uses his water as his transition item, and it wasn't there. Right. Yeah.
Oh, you found it. Oh my God. Oh my
He
God.
needed that water because he probably drinks his water as you walk back.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're so smart. Oh my
But
God.
I mean, he's also two and he's doesn't use mouth words. So like you're gonna see more frustration because he can't tell you like, Mom, I need my water. So you're gonna have a higher frequency of tantrums because of that language.
Wow. Yeah. And I knew he was like so thirsty. And I was
Yeah.
like, I did not bring the water and there's normally water. And so, okay. So it was the water
It was the
and the
water.
communication barriers.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like it was a change in his routine. Like, does he carry his water cup every single time you guys come back from the park? Or does he carry a water bottle? Does he have something to
He
hold?
has, yeah, he has his little sippy um on the it's like in
Yeah.
the stroller holder. It's
Yeah.
like
And so we
right
call that
there.
like a transition item. So for some kids, it's like a blanket or a stuffed animal. And for him, it's his water cup.
Oh my God. Yep, that's it. I knew it and I knew and I was trying to say like, are you thirsty? You want a drink? We gotta go home to
Yeah.
get the drink. So I was trying so hard.
Yeah.
But it was that was probably the worst meltdown I've
Yeah.
seen. And it wasn't terrible, but he was screaming quite
I
hard.
don't have my thing, the thing that I need, the thing that tells my
Yeah.
body that I need to go home.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, yeah. Oh,
And as a parent, like you're gonna have those moments. Like you're not gonna remember all of the things. And like you have to always also like give yourself grace as a parent. Like you don't know what you don't know. And I had a parent the other day say, "Well, I did it wrong or I made these mistakes." And I'm like, "You didn't make a mistake. For some people, for some families, it works and it makes sense for their family. But
yeah.
you don't know. You don't have all the information. You're not I'm on the outside of that tantrum. In the moment, I probably wouldn't have even been able to like pull out, well, he doesn't have his cup because you're in it and you don't have
Yeah.
that like ability to step back and be like, okay, what's different about the environment? But because I'm an outsider, like I have that moment of like, well, this is the only thing that you mentioned that was different. And so in my brain, like that was his change and that was enough of a change to struggle. Because initially when you were starting to tell a story, I was like, oh well, 2-year-olds don't understand time, like you need to use a visual timer. But you said he went back to the stroller, so I was like, well, he has a good concept of time if he went back to the stroller. And
Hmm.
it's that cup, that was the only change that you had mentioned.
Yeah. Yep. Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. So another thing, like if you, I want to hear how you're gonna answer this question. If you could break down development stages but like wiggle rooms within those stages, um, and like what parents should be kind of like cognizant of helping them because you said the way you broke down occupational therapy was like what they do, how they do that age or that group, that development level. And I was like, that's their occupation. Like their occupation is playing, eating, um,
Sleeping.
sleeping. Yeah. And so I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like, every stage is an occupation. So I know this is going to be quite a bit of an answer, but like, could you break down those developments? And yes, please.
So I will be completely honest, I am really bad at developmental milestones because I've never had children who meet their milestones. So I
Oh,
mean, historically, like my clientele population has been autistic. And so it's like milestones out the door, like what is impacting your success? And so I have a lot of parents now in early intervention. They're like, well, what are they supposed to be doing? And it's like, I don't know, because like it's what's impacting their success for you. So for this one little boy, doesn't have mouth words. His body is all over the place. And so for me, his impact is that he's not regulated, right? It's that sensory piece, that like primitive bottom of the barrel, like he needs rough play all day in order for his body to be organized. And so I don't have a concrete answer for you because I think it's like, well, what is important to you? Because something that's important to you may not be important to someone else.
oh, that's such a beautiful answer. So let me ask you this. For you work with kids that are not regulated. Am
Not
I doing that?
necessarily. I work with all different children. So I've worked with as young, actually now, as young as 1 month old, which was very scary.
Wow.
1 month old all the way up to 16 has been my oldest.
Okay.
So I've had neurotypical, I've had neurodiverse, I've had
What does
autistic,
all
I've
that
had
mean? Neurotypical. What is that?
neurotypical is like a normal brain, like whatever normal is. Neuro
Not like an example of that would be someone who's not autistic.
Correct. Someone who's
Okay,
not
okay.
autistic, doesn't have ADHD, doesn't have depression, doesn't have, I mean, there is a huge umbrella under that neurodiverse title. I literally just had this conversation with my boss today because he wants to learn more about that neurodiversity movement. And I was like, it's it's fascinating because it's that like advocacy piece. It's that respecting that no, it's really learning the differences of like the brain. And so I told him, I said, the little boy with the wheels on the bus with the iPad, I advocated for him to get speech in early intervention. And so I reached out to his service coordinator and she's like, well, he's not meeting the requirements. Like he's not playing appropriately. And I'm like, what's appropriate? Like his play is functional. He can stack blocks, he can request songs. Like, what else do you want him to do? He can push cars. I don't know what she's looking for. And I am very much a pot stirrer. And so I was like, let me not stir
I
this
love
pot yet. I'm too new in this like realm. And so I took that step back, but like advocating to the mom, and I was like, okay, well, if we can't get speech on board, I'm gonna make you like a low tech board because this little boy was so sad when I had to take my iPad away, and I was like, I'm so sorry, buddy. And so I think like in the interim, using that low tech board, he's gonna be able to make those requests. He's gonna be able to tell them what he wants and needs. Um, and even like within like the 5-6 weeks, when did I start with him? July, I think. So we're in September, so 8 weeks. he's no longer having these like big meltdowns. Like it's
Oh,
like he got
that's
sad, but
good.
like appropriately sad. Like I took something
Yeah.
away that was like giving him power. And like he was tearful and he cried. And I'm like, and me and the mom and the family that they were living with, we like all validated it and like just were in that moment with him. And I was like, I get it. Like that's not fun.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was like, I will make one because he needs it and we can see how powerful this is for him. Um, and so I will circle back and advocate for him again. Um, but knowing that like mom gets it, the family gets it. Um, and hopefully I'm gonna talk to mom about like ones that can go on her phone. Um, but just giving him those opportunities. And so he is starting to actually use language where he had it prior.
Wow.
So
Oh,
he's like making, we
makes
call
me
them like
so happy.
approximation. So it's like if I wanted, like if he's singing wheels on the bus, he's not gonna say wheels. He might like intonate, so like do like a weird tone in his voice. So intonation is like that sing-songy that you hear when people talk.
Na,
And
na, na,
so
na, na,
yeah, so like
na.
instead of saying wheels, it might be like whatever the tone is for wheels without words. Or just giving you like the first sound. It's different for every kid, which is why I don't want to say like this is what the verbal approximation is, but like you hear it, you're like, he's trying to say that word. and
Yeah.
and
You
he
know,
has,
Israel does that. It's
yeah,
for bye, he goes, ay, 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 ay.
yeah,
And it sounds like bye. It's like the end of bye.
yeah. And
Ay, ay,
B is
ay.
hard. B is definitely for some kids is hard, especially if they live. So Israel lives in retraction. He's here, he's smiley all the time.
He
And
is.
so getting those lips together to make a B sound is hard.
Oh, that's so interesting.
So you
Yeah,
know
so
the
Stacey knows
person
my
you
kids,
follow
so
on
she knows
YouTube that we
she
just
knows
talked
it.
about, go
What?
down the person you follow on YouTube. We just talked about the Instagram person, not YouTube. The speech therapist that you follow on
Oh,
Instagram.
yes, the one I sent you.
Yeah, look up B sounds. She'll be
Okay, I
able to guide
will.
you through that.
Oh my God, I'm gonna do it. Retraction. Israel is in retraction. That's so
Don't
fun.
Google that. Not that. That just
Okay,
means
just the B
his
sounds. I know, but
yeah,
I
B
wanted to
sounds.
write that down.
Yeah.
Stacey gives me homework. I love it. B sounds. So, okay. So, what about, I do want to talk about both because I know that there's going to be moms with kids who have, the neurodiversity kiddos. So, would, if you have a neurotypical kid and they aren't hitting the CDC milestones, what would you say to a parent like that?
I think it has to be like really specific for the parent. Like it's hard to like bubble wrap some like like a nuanced phrase for them. Um, because there's a reason that they're not meeting their milestones, whether they didn't do tummy time, whether they didn't crawl with the 4-point crawl, whether the birth was traumatic, whether they had a lot of ear infections, like all of those things, all of those uncontrollable things
Mm.
impact the development and growth. And like we can't control those things. We can just make them better when we see that it may be impacting their function.
Mm. Okay. That's good to know. So like for I'll be the guinea pig. So for someone like me whose son isn't meeting those 50 words and only speaks about 5, like what's kind of like how would you speak to if I was like your client?
I'm not a speech
Oh,
therapist.
right, right, right.
I want to be one, but I don't want to go back to school.
You're
Um,
like, ew, no.
I mean, I think like we don't know why language is so much harder than like motor, right? Then there is a
Mm,
motor piece to words. But there's also a sensory piece to words. And so it's like, is he living in this like hyper really fun state all the time? And so the only way that you hear his true voice is when he's really calm, because that's a lot of what happens when you're so dysregulated. So there's this amazing author, Victoria Wood. I would highly recommend it for anyone to read, and it's seeing through my sensory eyes or something of that nature. It's phenomenal.
okay.
And I took a course by her. But when you're dysregulated, when you're hyper, when you're in that like really fun state, you're in your vision room if your brain was separated into rooms, right? So I am in my vision room. There is no way when I am so amped that I'm going to be able to access my listening room, like my ears, or my language room, right? I have to come back down to level at some point in order to access those other rooms. And these are for like true sensory kids. Like we're all sensory beings, but like for every kid, like that would be where I would start. Like, are they getting enough movement? Is there a core stability issue? Like going through that timeline, like, is there weakness in their jaw? Is there tongue mobility issue? Like I would look at, because I'm an OT, I would look at it from like an oral motor standpoint, because I'm not nuanced in language. Like I know some things because I was blessed. I got the opportunity to work with speech therapists. So like I have a ton of knowledge that like I am very grateful for, and it has definitely like helped a lot of my families. Um, but that oral motor piece is huge in language development. So that's why like that cheek retraction, right? So like if his cheeks are tight back here, this is a lot easier than keeping your jaw down here, right? It's like his jaw is staying up all the time. And so he has to really like doing like cheek massage will like relax those muscles so he can activate other things in his mouth.
That's so interesting. Oh my God. I looked up the book. So it's called Seeing Your Home and Community with Sensory Eyes by
Yes.
Victoria
Yeah.
Bush.
It's amazing.
Oh, I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read it.
Yeah.
And so the premise is kind of like it's like holistic, if I'm
Yeah.
understanding. It's
Yeah.
like
It's very holistic.
it's not just he's not speaking 5 words. It's like what's his environment like? What's his exposure to the sun and outside and movement and
I
his
wouldn't necessarily like say like outside in the sun. I would say like movement, whether it's like, so we didn't really get into like sensory, but so our sensory system has 7 systems, and it's so complicated, and everyone being a sensory being needs different things for their sensory system. And so like we always talk about like the biggest sensory need that we can give ourselves is proprioception. So it's like the deep pressure, that rough housing, um
what's it called?
proprioception.
Okay. I'm gonna try and spell that proprioception. But you said it's like rough play.
It's, yeah, it's deep pressure. So it's like getting input to like the joints. And so what that does is it, for some kids and not all kids because everyone's different, it grounds them. So like I always talk about myself as an example because I am a sensory being. In the wintertime, I don't ride or dance as much because I don't like to go out in the cold. And so for me to stay grounded, I wear 2 layers of pants. And so that's like deep pressure to my legs. And if I'm not in 2 layers of pants, I am like on my tippy toes. I am uncomfortable, but that like creates this like neutral warmth, this grounding sensation. And I'm like, okay, like I may not be able to move as much, but like my body feels calm because I'm getting this like deep, big hug to my lower body. And I mean, you know me, I generally wear tight clothes. And so like that's because like that helps keep me grounded. I'm so uncomfortable when I wear loose clothes because I'm like, it doesn't fit right. Like, is it on me right? Like I'm constantly messing with my clothing, because it's like a constant like itch or tickle for me. And it just makes me uncomfortable.
That's so okay. So go through the 7 systems. So
The proprioception is like the big one.
uh-huh.
Then there's a vestibular system. So that's your inner ear. So that's like movement, swinging, riding in the car, sliding down slides. And those, you're going to have kids who are more sensitive or kids who like need a ton of it. And so there's this amazing, they're all amazing. This woman, I've mentioned her to you that I've followed, the OT Butterfly. And she gives like a great talk. And I don't know if it was her or someone else. It may have been someone else, but they talk about your sensory systems as cups. And so everyone has different cups that are going to fill their system. So my cup for proprioception is really big and I need to put a lot of stuff in it to fill it up so that I feel good. I hate movement. I am not good at movement. I don't like spinning. Which
As
is
the
really
dancer?
hard. Yeah.
Really?
You hate it. I hate being picked up. Hate being picked up. Like so uncomfortable off my feet. When I first started dancing, I got vestibular dysfunction because I was spun too much. And then I went to Disney World and I got it again because of all the rides. So it's like I am super sensitive, but most likely the reason I have this sensitivity is because of my concussion. Um, it's because I don't think I had this sensitivity prior to my concussion, but everyone's different. And so like I know I get dizzy easily. And so I was taking a class with I don't remember who, and I was like, okay, I get dizzy every single time we do this like weird turn where you're like tucked in. And she's like, you just have to keep doing it in order for your body to like get used to it. And I'm like, that's gonna take a lot of spins for my body just because like it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so there's
Proprioception.
proprioception, then vestibular, then
Then there's ocular motor. No, yeah, your eyes.
okay.
I'm not gonna use big terms. Your eyes. So like your vision. So like some kids are sensitive to light. Some kids love to stare at things that are moving. Um, and some kids like will we call it stimming, right? And like stimming's not bad. And there's this like
Or were they just like stare off into the distance?
not necessarily stare, but like they'll like flick a pen, like, or they'll spin something around, or they'll throw something. They're like watching it go up and down. And there's this like negative association with stimming, and it's like, but it makes your body feel good. And so it's like I've previously and past years as we're learning more, people would say, I don't want them to stim. Like, how do we get them to stop stimming? And we've done a lot of education, a lot of learning, talking to autistic and sensory adults. And they're like, it makes my body feel good. And I need this in order to be successful doing X, Y, and Z. So don't
Wow.
stop me from doing this because, like, I'm not going to be able to function if I don't have access to this. Um, and I also see it a lot when my kids are overstimulated. So there's too much going on. And so they stim because like their belly might be aching, or they're they're hungry. Like there's thing, and this is a non-speaking girl that I'm thinking of. And she can't communicate. And so it's like, well, she needs a stim to make her body feel good because something doesn't feel good. It could be she doesn't want to be at therapy. It could be the room is too bright. Like I no idea, but like that's what she needs in that moment. So like don't take away that thing that's going to make her feel good. And that's a kind of like that respecting that no, it's like respecting that body autonomy, that need um in that moment.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I just want to keep listening. Okay, number 4.
Um Vision, your nose, olfactory.
Okay.
Um
What's that?
the way you smell things. I think that's a system.
Oh, so cool.
So like big smells, little smells, are you sensitive to them? Do they make your body feel happy or sad or like calm, right? We talk about lavender all the time as like a calming smell. Well, for some people it's noxious, right? It doesn't smell good.
I think
I
I'm
was
one of
talking,
those.
huh?
I think I'm one of those.
Yeah.
Like I'm like people are like, oh, lavender, and I'm like, oh, it kind of gives me a headache.
Right. And so like I found this lotion that I love, and I like texted Sam and I'm like, how do I find a perfume with this smell? And he's like, well, send me it. And he's like, that's weird. And I'm like, but it makes me feel so calm. And it's really strange because it's called like it's like ho hey. And I'm like, of course it's like it's something that has hay in it.
With
Um
your horses, yeah.
yeah. But
Of course.
it's like this like warm summertime smell that's just like relaxing for me. But like
Mm.
everyone's body is so different. And what like you said,
Yeah.
like lavender doesn't feel good for you.
Oh, that's amazing. So taking in, so if I'm hearing you right, with these systems, you have to consider like for this factory one, which is smell, like is there something in our home that could be affecting their function?
Yeah,
Is
and
that
so
kind of
this
always the
this is
question?
a big one for feeding. So like kids that you see that like run away from the table, go under the table. Vision and smell are like two huge um roadblocks. And it's not something that a parent would think of. They're like, why are they under the table? And it's like, well, did you cook salmon tonight? Because salmon's a really big smell and they don't like that smell. Or broccoli, like,
Mm.
do they like broccoli? Can they touch broccoli? Probably not. They're probably on the other side of the room because it makes their body uncomfortable.
Wow. This is so cool. This is so cool. I don't know. I honestly don't know how I was able to get Israel to like pretty much try anything I give him.
He's
But I
always been a
had
good
some,
eater.
yeah, I had some friends tell me like, don't make anything special for him. Like just have him try what you're eating and don't force him to eat it. Just like let him like be messy with it, let him like experiment with it. And I was like, all right, I'm down. And so that's been a thing. And I'm always pretty flexible, even like where he eats, like what tools I just want him to like experiment with it.
Yeah. And I
And
think
but I
that works for some families, but you're
uh-huh.
definitely going to have those like kids who like can't eat the things that you're eating. Um,
Yeah.
but I think that like you hit the nail on the head and your friends were right, like, don't force them, give them tools and let them explore. Like that is the biggest thing. Like I I give it to parents, like I don't have children are messy and I hate mess. And so like I can't believe that I'm a feeding therapist because it is really messy. But like they need that opportunity to
Right.
like be messy and like
Yeah.
let them be messy. Like don't scrape the food off their face. Like let them put their hands in it. Like they need to do that exploration to so that their body can get ready to eat it.
Yeah. 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 It's crazy. Like I'll watch Israel make a total mess and he'll try like broccoli, shrimp, like he'll try all these things. And sometimes he won't touch potatoes. Like for whatever reason, he has this like aversion to potatoes, and I love potatoes. And I'm like, it's just so interesting watching him and he's like he'll try anything. It's
Yeah.
fun to watch. But I had never considered smell. Like I've never seen him be averse to smells. How would I pick that up? He would
It's
go
a
under
lot
the
of process
table.
of elimination. It's not there's no black and white for sensory. That's like the biggest like knife in the heart is like you really have to do trial and error. Like there's no secret recipe.
Mm.
And so not every kid's gonna be sensitive to smells, not every kid's gonna be sensitive to what's there. Some kids are flexible but some aren't, and so you kind of just like, so I'll have a lot of parents give me like a 3-day diet history, and when they give it to me, they'll tell me like what they do and don't eat. And I'm like, well, what happened on this day? What was their
Oh,
sleep like? Did they have like
um,
yeah, like all of those factors are huge in the success of mealtime, in the success of being able to go through the routines.
mind blown. Mind blown. I've noticed Israel will eat usually if I include him and I'm like, hey, do you want to help cut the pizza? Or like, do you want to do this? He's like, oh, let's try this thing. And then times where he's just kind of like in his own world and I haven't really included him in the meal prep, he's less likely. That's so interesting. Or eat, yeah, everything, sleep, yeah, all that what you said, I can totally see.
But you're having him have his hands on there. There's no demand to eat it. So it's like he's getting that interaction stage without any pressure to eat.
Yeah, no. Mm-mm. Yeah, I don't. And I also don't I let him stay there as long as he wants to.
Yeah.
Like if he wants to get down, it's so funny. I'm usually the one that's like, "Hey, like let's get you out of here." He's like, "I want to stay." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh." But oh, there was something you said and I forgot. Oh, yeah, that piece of like it's not A food journal, because that's like the fitness person
Yeah,
would
the
do with
3-day
like,
food log.
"Oh,
The
it's just
three
the food."
yeah, the 3-day food log.
What?
The 3-day food log.
What's that?
That's what I asked the parents for.
Oh, 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 oh. But you're going even deeper into
Mhm.
like their environment, their sleep
Well, and
patterns.
the brands, like, is it brand specific? Does it need to be cut a certain way? Does it need to be cooked a certain way? Is he eating a wider range of textured foods in the morning? Is he struggling with textured foods at night because his body is done? Like, there's so many nuances to sensory systems that like we're still learning about. Like, I love my field because there's so much that I still don't know. Um, and there's so many amazing people that are teaching, and there's more things to learn.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Okay, we're on just four. Wow. All right, go to five.
We talk eyes, nose. Do we say ears?
Nope.
Okay, so
Oh, wait,
auditory.
vestibular? That's the
No,
ear.
auditory.
Oh,
Auditory.
auditory. Okay, tell me about that.
So those kids that can't tolerate loud noises or can hear a pin drop. Like
Mm.
I remember in school, I felt like there were nails scratching on a chalkboard when kids would like tap their pencils. And I'm like, I can't stand it. Like it irritated me and I
Wow.
didn't know why. I'm like, is no one else getting bothered by this noise because I can't stand it.
That's so funny. Wow. So you remember like growing up, like
Yeah.
you're auditory sensitive.
To like some things, like I definitely it's definitely person specific.
Mm.
Um People will have like I know for like adults that have like neurodegenerative diseases, their sensory systems are impacted, and so you're going to see that like auditory sensitivity because of that imbalance.
Auditory degenerative. Is that something like
No,
Alzheimer's?
neurodegenerative, so like Parkinson's, dementia, like they all of those like brain diseases, you're going to see
Mm.
sensory impacts as well. um and not saying that like I guess I'm saying that like there's a correlation between like the brain and like your auditory sensitivity. And so we
Mm.
come from a society that like tried to fix it. So there's programs such as what's it called? The listening program, I think. Um and I never used it. And I think it is successful with some kids, but for some kids it's noxious because like you're making them listen to these sounds. And I don't know if that's how the program actually works, but that's how we used to do it. It's more like that desensitization, and we that's not cool anymore. Like that's not how we should be supporting these neurodiverse kids. It's respecting the fact that they don't like that sound, and that's okay. And like figuring out, okay, well, if you don't like that sound, how can we make you successful in that environment? Like, do you need headphones? Could you chew gum and that would like knock out that sound? Like, let's adapt the environment so that you're comfortable versus desensitizing you to that environment.
That's so interesting. So working with like what would you say is like the youngest child you worked with who had like an auditory sensitivity? And I'm just wondering like if you had a young kid who was not using mouth words. I'm trying to learn from you. It's like a not using mouth words. How would you communicate or how would you ask that question? How would you
You
just kind
can't.
of
You can't. I
you
think
just
it's
try to do
like I
things?
mean I have a friend who when their child was an infant, like they had to have all the lights off, there's no noise,
Oh
and
wow.
they adapted that environment because that was the only way that he was going to be successful for nursing, for drinking from the bottle. And
Oh
so
wow.
they adapted that environment, but they did all of these sensory strategies to like figure out like how is he going to be the most successful to eat? Like what is impacting his success?
Kind of just trial and error, seeing what, wow, yeah, yeah, yeah. I can see that.
And
I
like
can see that.
reading that nonverbal communication. So like I had a little girl I worked with from when she was 4 until she was 9 when I left my last clinic, and we had a fantastic rapport. And when I left, we were cooking, and she loved to cook, loved it. And
Hmm.
one day I was like, let's make a smoothie. But I was like, you hate loud noises. Like jumps up on the table when she hears a vacuum. And I was like, I wonder if anyone's ever given her headphones. And I kid you not, we made smoothies over multiple times, but I didn't desensitize her to them. I gave her the headphones. Her nanny was with her. We allowed her to walk away if she needed to. I would give her the power to turn the smoothie machine on and off. And by the time I left, she was no longer wearing headphones. So she allowed,
That's
yeah.
so
So
cool.
she figured out like that noise isn't scary anymore. I can
Yeah.
tolerate it if I can control it. If I can't control it, we gave her the headphones. So she had that choice. Initially, I would be like, hey, I'm going to put these on you. And if she tolerated it, fantastic. If she didn't, be like, okay, we don't tolerate it. Um, but we worked up to that point where like she could tolerate it. She put them on herself. I'm like, hey, we're gonna turn on the smoothie maker. Do you want to wear headphones? On they went, and then she would like slowly take them off. And I'd be like, that's amazing. Like she figured out that like her body was okay after all of these opportunities of like cooking.
So cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I love that. I feel like this is such an allegory for life, right? Like whatever anyone is uncomfortable with, like trying to like bring it down to this like micro habit or this micro dose
The
of whatever
why.
it is.
The why.
But
The why.
yeah, yeah. And then like slowly kind of pushing through even a little bit more discomfort, like a little dose of discomfort.
So I wouldn't say it that way, right? Because that would be desensitizing. I
Oh, okay.
I wasn't desensitizing her, right? Like I was giving her the opportunity to leave. I was giving her a strategy so that she didn't have to hear the noise. She made that choice to come back. So
Oh,
she knew at the end that we were going to make a smoothie. So she knew the end goal, but she didn't have to be in that room when that noise was going off. So I did not, there was no push for discomfort in that moment. Um,
I see what you're
that's
saying.
that's that respecting that no, respecting those non-verbal cues of like her body is terrified of this noise. I am not going to make her listen to it. I'm like, hey, I'm going to turn the smoothie on. Like, you can walk into the hallway and I'll turn it off and I'll count it down. But not putting her through that discomfort, right? She did that on her own. It was on her terms when she was ready.
That okay. Thank you for correcting me. Yeah, that's it's like correct me if I'm wrong. It's like allowing comfort strategies for comfort in an uncomfortable situation.
Yes.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, I freaking love that. That's awesome. I love that. I love that so much. I feel like that's a good I did another podcast with my friend and she's super into parenting and all these like parenting strategies and she's like it's all about regulating emotion. Like if you don't regulate yourself, how can you regulate your kid? And then aside
Co-regulation.
from that, like when your kid has adult level emotions in a tiny body and has no strategies on how to like solve them. And so like oh that's just so cool. That's it like it's kind of coming full circle
Full
like
circle.
it's like
Well,
figuring
it's
some
like,
things
do
out.
you have strategies as an adult? Because if you don't have strategies, your kid's not going to have strategies.
And I didn't. I realized in that podcast like cuz sometimes it like my my own regulation goes like, and I'm
You get
like, I'm about to
dysregulated. Yeah.
freak out. Yeah, so what I would do when I was feeling that like freak out is I would just like flee. I would just like, I need to just leave the room and like, because I don't want to do anything I'm gonna regret. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And she was like, it's totally fine to leave the room. It's not the best, but like let him know in some way, like,
Yes.
I'll be right back. I'm gonna go outside so I can take a breath, like
Yeah.
so just make sure and I need to work on that because
But like honor your own discomfort and label your own discomfort, right? It's that like validation of your own emotions because they're okay. We're allowed to have emotions. And it's like, mom is having a really hard time right now. I'm feeling frustrated. I need to go take a break. And there was like a great, I don't know if it was like a meme or a story of this little girl. or reel, I think it was a reel of this little girl, and this mom had worked on regulating her emotions. She was homeschooled, and she brought her daughter on this like trip, this girls trip. And everyone's like, why are you bringing your daughter? Like, this is supposed to be a girls trip. And she's like, it'll be fine. So this little girl, this 2-year-old, went to a restaurant with all of the adults. And
I saw this post. I saw this whole thing, but say it
yes. And so they all had like glass cups. Well, the waitress came and snatched the glass cup and
from
was
the
like,
little girl.
for the little girl.
Yeah.
And then another person came by and snatched the knife, and she had the skill set to use a knife or not be unsafe with a knife. And she's like, she looked at her mom and she's like, I need a break, or I need to go outside. And her mom had worked and labeled those emotions and taught her strategies, and she was able to like regulate herself and like, or figure out what her body needed in order to be successful in that moment.
Oh, I
And so the end
love
of the story was like the friends thought that their trip was done, their dinner was done, so they had everything, bless you,
that. Thank you.
they had everything packed up, and the little girl was fine. They just needed that minute outside to like regulate together, right? Because she doesn't have the skills as a 2-year-old to regulate herself. She needs her mom to go with her, which she identified like, I need to go outside. And I think they like took deep breaths, or I think mom, they had some like really good communication. And so, but that labeling of like that frustration is so important, because I feel like we come from a generation, or at least I'm older than you, so I come from a generation of people who don't identify their emotions, or like they hide their emotions and don't know how to manage them. And it's like, it's okay to have emotions. Why are we having them? What is the why, like what's happening? Like I would get angry, and I still do, because things are out of my control, and that's why I get dysregulated. Like those are my biggest dysregulators, is like when I don't have control of a situation, or things don't go the way that I thought they would. And so like I've identified that now, and I still struggle, but like I know that's why I have big reactions. And I have not learned successful coping strategies, but like I can recognize it in that moment. But for me and for some of these kids, it could be the fact that like I didn't sleep the night before. So like,
Yeah.
or like right? Like those little things, that sleep is going to impact your ability to regulate your emotions, right? Like I was dancing 7 nights a week and sleeping
God.
for 2 hours. So like, yeah,
Yeah,
right, I can
yeah.
regulate my emotions. My whole sensory system was out of whack.
That's so interesting. This is so yummy. And like we've already been talking for an hour. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do the sixth one.
Smell, taste.
Taste. Okay.
So, how do we label it? So like some kids don't like big flavors, or some kids need big flavors. This could be like you have a kid that's overstuffing. Well, why are they overstuffing? Usually it happens because they don't have a lot of awareness of their mouth, and whatever they're
Mm.
eating needs more flavor, to help them find the back of their mouth. Does that make sense?
Whoa.
Yeah.
No, it
Um,
doesn't, but keep talking.
you said no, it doesn't.
But I mean like explain a little bit more. So like
Yeah.
they're not aware of their mouth, which could be one reason or it
Yeah.
is the reason. There's so
It could be one reason. Like, right,
okay.
there's a plethora of reasons, but like taste is so interesting, right? Because when we're born, we don't have all of our taste buds, I think. But like breast milk and formula is like very one note, but like when they drink breast milk, they get all of the different nutrients based on like what mom eats and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas formula is very like one dimensional. And so there's this like frame of thought that like the breastfeeding, like the breast milk helps with that like um wider palate and ability to like explore other foods.
Mm.
But along the way, and who knows why, it could be that that muscle, going back to like that muscle piece, like when they were nursing, when they were on the bottle, did they use all their muscles the right way, or did they compensate by like chugging the bottle down? Like it literally everything goes back to infancy. And so
Wow.
it's like we don't know, like we don't always know the why. We can kind of like dig and unveil and be like, oh, well, that's why. It doesn't really matter now, but like that makes more sense of like the path and how we got here.
Mm.
Um, but it's like, well, if that didn't happen in infancy, they're going to need more help is being like an older child because that action wasn't like, didn't happen.
Okay.
Does that make
Okay.
sense?
It does. I want to ask you more about the because I know Israel does the overstuffing. And I wonder though, I don't know if it's the taste for him, because when I notice he's overstuffing, it's because he's really excited and wants more of whatever I'm giving him. So what would you say to like something like that?
I would limit the amount of food you put in front of him so that he doesn't overstuff. I would also check out his cheeks and his jaw strength
Oh,
because it could be impacted by his oral motor. Like he could be excited and overstuffing, absolutely. But I in my practice, I've never seen it just be because they're excited. Um, but that doesn't mean that's not true because, like I
yeah.
said, everyone's different and has different reasons.
I love that. I love that you don't come with like a bias from your experience. You're like, let me just, every kid is a clean slate. Like,
Yeah.
let's figure it out. So you're saying to check his cheeks?
Yeah. So, like, are his, like, when you brush his teeth, like, are his cheeks tight? Like, can you swipe
Yes.
all the way? Yeah. They're tight.
So like when I brush his teeth, which I just recently started doing, I know, bad mom moment, but like he'll go like, it's kind of like that's as
Yeah.
much as he can go.
Yep. So his cheeks are tight. Yep.
Oh,
That's
wow.
why he lives in retraction.
Whoa.
It's
Teeth
all related.
are tight. So then what do I do for that?
Cheek stretches. What kind of toothbrush are you using? Are you using the finger toothbrush or a regular toothbrush?
It's like it's a t it's like a toothbrush but like curved in.
Okay, I would use, do you think he'll bite you if you put your finger
No.
in his mouth? Okay, I would just take your finger and just gently go inside. So like going up to the gum line and then making like a C shape all the way down to the lower gum line.
Like that.
Yep.
I just had to do it.
Yeah, no, you're good. I have
Okay.
a rubber band on my finger, otherwise I would do it.
No, you're good. Okay. Like that.
Yeah.
Oh.
And you're gonna
And what if he
see,
doesn't like that?
well, and okay, good question. So if he doesn't like that, go further up, don't go that far back, and just hang out there to much as he'll tolerate. So like if he's only tolerating like right inside that crease, just like gently rub right inside that crease. And it's gonna work itself out. I mean, I can't tell you, I had this mom who like did these cheek stretches and the kid's mouth is like fantastic. I'm like, holy cow, like I can tell that you've been doing the cheek stretches because her cheeks aren't tight anymore.
That is so fascinating. And so from your oh, you said everything goes back to infancy, but it's hard to say what happened in infancy to create
Yeah.
cheek tightness.
Yeah.
Is there a
Just because,
common thread for
yeah,
what
it's a
causes?
common thread because it's like and like I don't know that much about breast and bottle feeding yet. Like I'm just learning, I'm just diving in. And so what I've learned so far is that like let's say the baby's not latching, right? They're spilling out the sides of their mouth. More than likely the back of their tongue is weak and they're not able to fully, which is causing that like difficulty with sealing and flow of the bottle. And so what this program had us do, because you don't want your hands in an infant's mouth as much as possible, you want them to like figure it out and like use their bodies, right? Because their bodies are amazing and are going to be able to figure it out. use the environment. So, right. So there's like pace feeding. So it's when you like feed the baby and you like naturally slow the amount of milk that's in the bottle. So that way they can figure out how much and when they're ready. And so they can help with that like suck, swallow, breathe coordination too.
Wow. This stuff is so freaking interesting.
So deep. It's so deep.
Wow. Yeah, because so could you wouldn't do pace feeding breastfeeding, would you? That's only in a bottle.
I don't remember. I
That's
feel like
so interesting.
yes, you can pace feed with breastfeeding,
Just
but
detach the
I
latch.
don't think it's naturally I don't think it's detaching. I think you feed with them on your chest so that gravity is not helping your supply.
Oh, I love those. I love the ones on the chest. Yeah. When you're
So
laying
it's
down,
yeah, so it's
laying
like
down.
positional changes.
Oh, that was a lifesaver for me. Yeah, doing
Yeah.
different positions. I really like that. That's so interesting. Okay, so we're on the sixth one. What's the seventh one?
Interoception,
Oh, what's
I
that?
think. I think that's it. So interoception is your body's ability to know how it feels. So Kelly Mahler, I think I'm saying that right, Mahler, came up this fantastic program called the Interoception Protocol. And it talks about like identifying how your body feels. So, like, something that's a little bit more concrete for you and me are hunger cues. Like, for me, I feel empty when I'm hungry. But for this like other girl, she gets a headache. And so like yeah, everyone has different hunger cues. And
Yeah.
so it's learning like what does your body feel? So you'll go through different experience like this protocol, you go through different experiments and you're like you touch different things and you do different exercises and you're like, well, when I do this, like my heart's beating really fast. And you're able to label that like um that feeling. So like let's do jumping jacks. Well, for you, when we did jumping jacks, it made your heart feel like it was beating really slow. And that there's no wrong answer, but it's kind of unlocking that mystery of like, well, how does your body feel in these moments so that we can figure out like what it is that your body needs to be successful. She gives this like great lecture with one of her, I think it was a client of hers, and she doesn't feel like a neurotypical person feels. I don't remember what it's called. She feels in like shapes and colors. It was fascinating. I was just talking about this today. I was like, I want to re-listen to that conversation because it was just like mind-boggling. But it was so cool just because like we all have different body signals and like people who have that like that fall under that neurodiversity umbrella are going to have most likely, and I don't want to like label everyone and put them in a bubble, have more challenges with that those interoception skills. And interoception is so hard. It's like knowing when your bladder is full, knowing when you're tired, knowing um, when you're feeling hot or cold, or and it goes so deep that it draws this pathway between body feelings and then emotions. And it's like, okay, well, if my eyes are wet and my head hurts and my voice or my throat hurts, then I'm probably sad because I've been crying so hard and most likely wailing, right? If my throat hurts, then I'm most likely sad. Um, and so it goes through like, well, how does like I use this for like a kid that like really struggled with when they were feeling angry. And it's like, okay, well, how does your body feel when it's angry? And so we went through each different body part, and his hands felt tight and his skin felt sweaty. And it's like, okay, well, how can we help you in those moments, right? He needed like an ice pack or he needed something to squeeze. And like that was how he figured out like how to make his body feel better.
That is so freaking interesting. Like, what the? I've never heard of this. It's called introception.
Interoception.
Inter
Oh,
O I
ception.
N T E R O.
Mm-hmm. Ception.
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 Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What was the name of that lady that did this course?
Kelly Mahler, Mahler.
That is something else. I love that. Like, I feel like everyone could benefit from going through all like probably like major emotions, anger, sad, happy, maybe
Yeah.
the ones that are more distressing a little bit, and being like, hey, this is what my body feels like when I'm sad, when I'm depressed, when I'm stressed, when I'm, I don't know, any other sad emotion.
Like for me, it's like I've been able to label like when I'm feeling fast, like
Fast?
fast. Yeah. When I like my hyper, I feel fast. Um, and
Oh,
so my mom, I was talking to my mom the other day, and she's like, she said something really funny, and my speech changes when I feel fast. And like I can't, and I talk fast in general, but like when I'm hyper, it's like I hope you can follow my plan because I can't slow my language down.
what the heck? That is so amazing. So, because I'm trying to think, like, I've never gone through this almost kind of like an inventory of
Mhm.
like emotion. This is what's happening in my body.
And
And
it's really cool because you can like start labeling that for your kids. Like
yeah.
when you're feeling frustrated, like Israel, I'm feeling really frustrated. Like my hands are sweaty and my heart is beating and my head is starting to hurt and I need to walk away so that I can calm my body down and I will be right back.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's so cool. So, yeah, I think for me, like when I'm feeling like stress or overwhelm or anger, I for some reason like going outside and like the sun, it's just like, oh man, like it helps me feel like because like when I'm home, I love being home. I feel really safe at home, but when the home gets a little chaotic, I just want to like run away. Like
Why do you
so
think I spend all my time at the farm? I'm outside in any element. Well, not any element. I'm a little bit more sensitive to cold now, but
yeah.
I have a heated vest and I'm gonna get heated pants this year. And I mean, I need to be outside.
I think all humans benefit from sun exposure and being
Yeah.
outdoors. I don't know, I really think our bodies on a cellular level. I'm reading this book called Good Energy, and it talks about how like the mitochondria in the cells gets energy from the sun. Even when it's cloudy,
Mhm.
you get that vitamin D. And I'm like, whoa. Like, and it's pretty interesting because we do live pretty sedentary lifestyles. And I mean, in
Comparatively.
America, but I'm sure around the world because of
Yeah.
the bringing about of technology, which is awesome. But I think that we need to be more conscious of like, hey, have I been outside yet? Like,
Yeah. I mean,
do I
like
need
think
to go
about
for a
how the
walk?
environment was during COVID. Like we didn't have all of the environmental challenges we have now because people weren't driving as much and people were outside and it was people, I mean, people were struggling with COVID, but like it made a huge impact on like our
Mhm.
environment in general and like just it gave a lot of insight to people about like quality of life and like their lives were better when they were virtual because they were more successful because they were able to do the things they needed to do. They were able to go outside when they needed to go outside and like COVID was awful, but I think there was a lot that we learned from it too.
So much, so much. This is so cool. Interception, Kelly Mahler.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, girl. It is almost 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for us. So I think this is a lot. And I honestly think we need a part two because
Okay.
I feel like I'm just like scratching this. iceberg of like super, you have so much knowledge and so much information. And I do,
It's really hard because like it's hard to turn my brain off a lot because I see all the things and it's like I don't want to say the things because like I don't want to offend anyone and it's like it's not coming from a place of like malice, like it's really coming from like I can't stop. Like I have no filter and you know I have no filter. But like even in my OT brain like I have no filter and it's hard to like just turn that lens off and I haven't figured out the success to that yet.
I honestly think that's your superpower, if I'm being honest. I think you being just so open with sharing like what you're thinking and feeling, I really think that's your superpower. Because like so many people just don't say what they really mean. And it's so hard because then we're like, did they really mean that? But like with you, it's like, no, I know exactly how I sound with Stacey, or like I know exactly what she thinks because she's gonna tell me. Like I think that's your superpower. I really do. I enjoy, I think it's a breath of fresh air when people really say what they mean. I really love that about you.
Thanks.
hmm for a closing note, like as and I know you don't have kids,
No, I
but
don't.
you have so much skills and knowledge that could help a lot of parents.
Mhm.
So like the overarching theme of like OT and your pediatric experience, what are kind of some takeaways that you would want every parent to know? I know you don't like being generic, but like
Yeah.
what's something generic that you think would be helpful for
Let
parents?
your kids get messy.
Ooh, I love that.
Put a shower curtain down. Strip them down so they are eating naked. They can take a bath afterwards. Let them have that time to explore and let them explore outside of meals, right? Like that's what they need. Like a lot of times and I'm going to continue because that's just how my brain works. I have I've had children who like will put everything in their mouth and I'm like, "Okay, well then we're going to do a sensory bin that's food related because they're going to be able to explore with their hands and they're going to if they're going to put in their mouth at least it's safe."
Mm, I love that.
Yeah.
Do another one. I love these sound bites. These are fun.
Um General tip, give yourself grace, right? Like there's no as my mom said there's no handbook for being a parent. There's a lot of books, but like there are a ton. But like you don't know what you don't know, and that's okay. And you don't have to solve all the problems, right? Use your resources.
Oof, I love that. Say that again.
You don't have to solve all your problems. Use your resources.
That's so good.
And you are your child's best advocate.
That's so tell me what you mean by that.
Um, so you as a parent, you know your child in and out. You know their nuances, you know their likes, their dislikes, their cues. Like, I mean, with
Yeah.
the babies, they're like, oh, that's their hunger cry, or that's
Yeah.
their needing a change cry. Like, you are so in tune with your child. And when we go to like gather this information, it's not that you're leaving it out to be like sneaky. It's just
Yeah.
because it's so innate for you that it's like second nature. You're like, well, I didn't even think that would have mattered. But it's because like you know your child best and you just have to say all of the things to help find why, but like don't stop advocating like getting the support that your child needs because that's what they deserve.
I love that. I think you said, I don't know if you would consider this a soundbite, but like figure out the why behind their behaviors. Would you think that's another
Yeah,
sound?
I am very big on a behaviorist communication. A behavior has a purpose. Um, and I I don't like behavioral programs, sorry. I think that right, like there's those four building blocks that behavioral therapists will look at like, is it escape? Is it attention? Is it in order to get an item? Um, there's one more that I'm blanking on, but like there's those reasons. But again, like they're communicating, like they don't like it. Okay, well, why don't you like it? They want that item. Well, why do you want it? Like, because it's gonna make your body feel good. Are you gonna be successful while you're doing whatever we need to do? Can you have it and do the things? Fantastic. Let's bring that thing over. Attention. I bet the attention feels good, right? It's that like whether it's negative or positive attention, like they just want that attention. And you can be giving them all the attention in the world that you have enough that you can, but for whatever reason, their body needs more because they just do.
Oh, this is so good. You should write a book. Like I already,
Oh,
I'm like, she's like, I'm not doing that.
you don't want me writing a book.
Oh my God, this is such good information. So is this what I usually do at the end of my podcast when I do an interview with someone is I'm like, where can people find you or where can people like message you if they have more questions? Is that something you're open to? I didn't even ask.
Um, yes, I'm definitely happy to answer questions. I haven't started my consulting business because I don't know where to start. But yes, I'm happy to answer questions. I think the internet, I was just talking about this today, the internet has so much information, it's a blessing and a curse. But that's where there's that resource. Like I love being a resource. Like you said, I have a ton of information in my brain.
So
Um, and but there are a lot of people in your communities that also have this information.
mm,
And so it's like find the resources within your own community because you're going to be more successful with that direct service versus me kind of giving you those sound bites.
I love that. I love that so much. Ah, Stacey, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. I'm gonna already ask for a part two because in part three and part four. I'm just kidding. But like this was so helpful. I know this is gonna help so many of my mamas out there that are trying to figure out the life of motherhood and their kids. This is gonna be so beneficial. So thank you so, so much.
You're welcome. It was fun. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, babe.